I wasn't supposed to be home that morning. A flight cancellation and a scramble of overnight connections had dropped me back in town almost a full day early. I didn't tell her I was coming back. I figured I'd surprise her with breakfast, something casual, thoughtful. Maybe pastries from that place she liked off 8th Street. I even jogged there that morning after landing, trying to beat the sunrise, working off 3 days of airport food and stiff hotel beds. The sky was still low and hazy when I got back. I let myself in quietly, not wanting to wake her if she was still asleep. The house smelled like eucalyptus and citrus, the diffuser she liked to run when she wanted to reset the energy. I was sweaty and sore, and instead of heading straight in, I went up to the balcony on the 2nd floor, our little escape spot. A place with just enough view to make you feel above things, if only barely. I had planned to sip some water, stretch a bit, and maybe knock on the sliding door like an unexpected guest. But then I saw it. A leather bracelet, thick and worn, sat curled on the edge of the table like it belonged there. Not just any bracelet. Masculine in design, dark brown with hand-braided loops and a tarnished silver bead at the center. A bead that looked smoothed down by time, the kind of thing a person wears every day unconsciously. Not decorative. Personal. It wasn't mine. Next to it were 2 mugs. One still had steam rising from it, the other half-drunk and smudged with lipstick on the rim. Hers, clearly. But the other had a faint trace of something different. Cologne, I realized as I leaned closer. A scent I didn't wear. A cologne I didn't own. My heart didn't leap to conclusions, not immediately. At first, I stood there, just staring, like my brain was still catching up. Like it needed more context to panic. That's when I heard the shower shut off inside. I stepped back from the table, bracelet in hand, and walked toward the sliding door, half expecting her to appear with some innocent explanation already loaded in her smile. The air was cool, but I felt hot, the kind of hot that bubbles beneath your skin that doesn't come from running. A few minutes passed. Then she emerged. Wrapped in a towel, her wet hair clinging to her neck, she stopped mid-step when she saw me. "Jason?" Her eyes blinked wide. "You're back." I raised the bracelet slowly. "Found this." She barely missed a beat. Her pause was short, calculated, her smile quickly reassembled. "Oh, that," she said, her voice breezy, too light. "Greg must have left it. He stopped by last night." "Greg?" I asked. "Yeah, you know, from the volunteer group?" I mentioned him. We were planning the charity event. He was just helping me brainstorm a few things. No, she hadn't mentioned him. Not once. I would have remembered. I'm not the type to forget a new name orbiting my wife's world. But I didn't correct her. I just nodded slowly, bracelet still in my hand. She kept going, as if the story would become more believable the more she said. How he dropped by unexpectedly, how they talked on the balcony, how he must have left the bracelet when he left. She even joked about him being the kind of guy who loses things. Then she leaned in, kissed my cheek, and asked if I wanted breakfast. Like nothing had happened. Like the bracelet wasn't still burning a hole through my palm. I followed her inside. The kitchen was spotless. No signs of a guest. No jacket draped over a chair, no dishes in the sink, no extra toothbrush in the downstairs bathroom. She moved with ease, with the same gentle rhythm she always had, humming softly, pouring juice, talking about the weather like it was the most important thing in the world. But something was different. It wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't. She didn't ask why I was home early. She didn't seem all that surprised. That was the part that got me. I placed the bracelet on the counter next to the fruit bowl and sat down. She turned her back and busied herself with eggs, but I could tell she was watching me in the reflection of the microwave. Gauging me. When she finally sat across from me, she smiled like everything was normal. Like I hadn't just stumbled across a clue I wasn't supposed to find. I asked about the charity event, played dumb. She nodded, launched into details, named a few people I actually did know. But not Greg. Never circled back to him. Not even once. The moment passed, or at least, she let it pass. And I, for reasons I still can't quite explain, let it pass too. Maybe it was shock. Maybe I needed more proof. Or maybe I didn't want to believe that this woman, the one who knew the way I took my coffee and the kind of socks I wore to bed, was capable of lying so smoothly. But something cracked open inside me that morning. Quietly, invisibly. Like a door that had always been locked was now just barely ajar. And behind it I could feel something moving. I didn't say anything more about the bracelet that day. I didn't press. Didn't accuse. Didn't ask again who Greg was or why she hadn't mentioned him before. I just let it slide into the background like a half-forgotten item on a cluttered desk. But it never really left my mind. It hovered there, in the corner of my thoughts, casting a longer shadow than I expected. I went about my day pretending to be tired from travel, which wasn't entirely a lie. I was tired, but it wasn't from airports or red-eye flights. It was from the question that wouldn't die. In the days that followed, something in me shifted. Not abruptly, more like a slow, creeping pull, like the tide inching up the shore when you're not looking. My mind started rearranging the past few months. I'd spent so much energy brushing off red flags that I hadn't realized how many there were. But now that the bracelet had opened the door, they all came flooding back in. There were the late nights, for starters. My wife had always worked hard, but this was different. She used to come home and complain about long hours, how draining they were, how much she hated staying late. But lately, she didn't complain at all. She just quietly stayed late. Then later, then even later, she'd come home with that same neutral smile. Not guilty, not glowing, just flat, worn out, like she'd just finished performing something. Then there were the texts. They used to be open. If she got one while we were watching TV, she'd glance at it, chuckle, maybe even show it to me. But now she angled the phone away or read it in another room. I wasn't even sure when that started, only that now it was the norm. If I walked by too quickly while she was texting, the screen would turn dark. Not dramatically, just a flick of her finger. A silent boundary drawn in glass and LED. I used to think nothing of it. Now I saw it for what it was. A pattern. 100 little things came into focus all at once. The way she recoiled slightly when I touched her waist while she cooked. The pause before she answered a simple question like, "Where were you today?" The trip to Denver she took last month. The one for work. Where the hotel didn't match her itinerary. She said the venue had changed last minute, but she never showed me the updated details. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. I wanted to believe I was just being paranoid. That I was tired, stressed, imagining things. But then there was Laura. Her friend Laura had always been loose with wine and secrets. The kind of person who couldn't keep a lid on anything after her second glass. We'd all had dinner together about a week before I found the bracelet. My wife had gone inside to grab dessert, and Laura had leaned toward me, giggling with wine-flushed cheeks. "You're a saint, you know that?" she said, raising her glass. I smiled, unsure. "For what?" She shrugged, lips twisting into something between mischief and regret. "For just being you. Most guys would have cracked by now." I laughed it off at the time, but even then, it felt off. Like there was a layer I wasn't being allowed to peel back. She'd quickly changed the subject, started talking about a mutual friend's baby or something mundane. But that sentence stuck with me. Now it rang louder than ever. I was a saint for not cracking, because something had been happening behind my back. And people, at least one of her friends, knew. The injustice of it stung. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up. I supported her when she wanted to switch careers, even when it meant tightening our budget. I listened when she ranted about office politics. I canceled plans with friends when she had migraines. I noticed the little things, refilled her shampoo before it ran out, bought her favorite snacks before she asked. I was there, but she wasn't. At least not in the same way anymore. She'd become slippery, hard to pin down in conversation. She dodged emotional closeness with a polished ease that had become its own form of armor. Any attempts to reconnect were either met with surface-level kindness or an evasive shift to another topic. Like we were coworkers on the same shift, not partners in the same home. And it was subtle, so subtle that I started questioning myself. That's the worst part about this kind of shift. It makes you feel crazy for noticing it. It turns you into the villain just for asking too many questions. The bracelet became a totem. I left it on my dresser, tucked beneath my watch, where I could see it every morning and night. I didn't need to touch it. I just needed to know it was there. Proof that I hadn't imagined what I saw. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I wasn't ready for other people's opinions. I wasn't ready for the labels. Cheating, affair, betrayal. Words have weight, and I wasn't ready to carry them just yet. I needed more than a hunch and a bracelet. I needed clarity. But that clarity didn't come right away. Instead, I lived in limbo. I played my role like nothing had changed. I kissed her goodnight. I asked about her day. I nodded when she mentioned work stress and agreed when she said she might visit her sister next weekend. I even laughed at her jokes, the ones I used to find endearing. Now, they just sounded distant. But internally, I cataloged everything. Every inconsistency. Every small detail that didn't line up. I stopped trusting the surface and started listening for what was beneath. And what was beneath? Noise. Muffled, confusing noise. The sound of someone carefully maintaining an illusion. A life that looked good on paper but was slowly crumbling underneath. One night, I watched her fall asleep next to me. Her breathing was soft, steady. Her back was turned to me, her arms folded beneath the pillow. I lay there, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. I wondered if she was dreaming about him. Or maybe she wasn't dreaming at all. Maybe she was sleeping peacefully because I hadn't said a word. Because in her mind, she was still ahead. Still in control. But she wasn't. Not anymore. It was a Friday when I decided I couldn't take the guessing anymore. Not the kind of Friday that wraps you in weekend comfort, but the kind that presses down on you, heavy, suffocating. The bracelet was still on my dresser, untouched for days but never truly out of mind. Every time I brushed past it, the thought returned, you already know. I needed truth, not theories. She texted that morning, same as always, busy day. Meeting might run late. Don't wait for me, red heart. I stared at the heart emoji longer than I should have. That used to mean something. Now it felt like punctuation, something she added for symmetry, not sincerity. I waited until the afternoon, made sure she was still at work. I called her office line, and her assistant confirmed she was in a meeting. I thanked her and hung up. I drove to her building anyway and waited from a safe distance, parked across the street in a lot that offered the perfect line of sight to the employee exit. I wasn't proud of what I was doing. This wasn't me. But I couldn't keep being the fool in someone else's story. I had to know. Around 5:12 p.m. she left. Not from the front. From the side. She moved quickly, phone in hand, scanning the sidewalk. She wasn't looking for me, she was checking to see if she was alone. That told me more than any argument ever could. Then he pulled up. Black sedan. Tinted windows. She opened the door like it was routine, like muscle memory. Slipped in with ease, no hesitation. No glance back. I waited a minute, started my engine, and followed. They didn't head downtown. They didn't go to a bar, or a park, or even a hotel. They went somewhere more deliberate, a rental house on the edge of town. A quiet one. The kind of place you'd only find if you were looking for it. Not flashy, not hidden, just unremarkable. Which, I guess, was the point. I parked far enough away to avoid being seen but close enough to watch. My hands were gripping the steering wheel tighter than I realized. They didn't linger outside. They knew where they were going. As they moved toward the front door, he reached for her hand. She let him. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't new. Inside, the lights flicked on. A silhouette moved across the large window. First him. Then her. I stayed low, out of sight. My heart was pounding, but my breath was quiet. Controlled. They sat down. Close. No personal space. No tension. Just ease. I watched the way she leaned into him. The way his hand found her knee. The way she tilted her head when she laughed, that familiar little gesture that used to be reserved for me. It wasn't just physical. It was practiced. Rehearsed. Comfortable. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was something with history. I didn't stay long after that. I didn't need to. I'd seen enough. Too much, actually. Driving away felt like dragging myself through molasses. My brain wasn't forming complete thoughts, just flashes, fragments. Her hands, his smile, the bracelet, the balcony, the steam in the bathroom that morning. It all lined up now. Every lie, every delay, every evasion. I didn't cry. Not then. I don't think I had the bandwidth for grief yet. What I felt was something colder, clarity. Sharp-edged and surgical. I'd played my part. I'd been loyal. I doubted myself. But I hadn't been wrong. That mattered. That meant something. I got home before she did. I showered, changed into fresh clothes, and made dinner. Set the table. Lit the candle she liked, the one that smelled like sandalwood and vanilla. I didn't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to see if I could pretend too. When she walked in around 9:30, she looked tired but not disheveled. Not like the women in movies who sneak home with lipstick smears and messy hair. She looked normal. Composed. The same woman who'd spent years of her life sharing inside jokes and Sunday mornings with me. Hey, she said. Sorry, work turned into a mess. I'm fried. She kissed my cheek. I let her. You already eat? She asked, hanging her bag by the door. Not yet, I said. Thought I'd wait. She smiled, automatic. That's sweet. She didn't ask about my day. She didn't notice the candle. She sat down at the table, took a bite of chicken, and started talking about a presentation that had supposedly gone sideways. I watched her the whole time, not saying much. Her words flowed easily, like she'd said them 100 times in her head already. Her hands moved as she spoke, fingers pinching the air like punctuation. She made a joke about her boss, and I laughed softly. Because I still remembered how. When dinner was over, she thanked me. Told me I was a great cook. Kissed me again. Then she went to bed. I stayed up. I didn't confront her. Not that night. Maybe not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. What do you say to someone you've seen betraying you through a pane of glass? How do you look at the person you've built your life with and say, I saw you with him? I watched the way you touched him. I saw who you are when you think no one's watching. I didn't have those words yet. All I had was the image burned into my brain, her head tilted back in laughter, the reflection of her in that rental window. It was all the truth I needed. And now I had to decide what to do with it. The next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs. She was humming, not loudly, not joyfully, but enough to make the air feel like it hadn't changed. Like everything was just another Tuesday morning and not the aftermath of me watching her through the glass of another man's life. She turned when she heard me. Hey, sleepyhead, she said, smiling. Coffee's fresh. I nodded. Thanks. She slid a mug across the counter. Big meeting today? Not really. She waited for me to elaborate, but I didn't. Her smile faltered for a split second, then recovered. She turned back to the stove and started flipping eggs like we were in some movie about a marriage that still worked. I watched her move and I realized something she thought I didn't know. Or maybe she thought I didn't want to know. Either way, she was playing the same role she'd been playing for weeks. Smiling, kissing, humming, pretending. But I was done pretending. I didn't yell. I didn't ask about Greg. I didn't mention the black sedan or the rental house with the wide window. I just stopped. Slowly, intentionally, I started withdrawing from the life we shared, not out of spite, but as a quiet refusal to carry the weight of it alone. It started with the little things. I stopped making her coffee in the morning. Stopped refilling the oat milk before it ran out. I stopped folding her laundry when it was mixed in with mine, stopped buying her favorite snacks, stopped filling her gas tank, just in case. She didn't notice right away. At first, I think she thought I was distracted. Maybe work had me stressed. Maybe I was still catching up from the trip. She made jokes about me being spacey, tried to tease me back into our rhythm. But I didn't bite. I started going to bed before her. Not to sleep, but to avoid the small talk. I stopped offering to help with dinner, stopped reaching for her hand during movies, stopped responding with anything beyond nods and yeah. It was subtle, but deliberate. She adjusted at first, took it in stride, acted like it didn't matter. But I could see the flickers of confusion behind her eyes. The micro-expressions she couldn't control when I didn't laugh at her jokes or lean into her touch. It wasn't anger she saw in me. That would have been easier for her to handle. It was distance. A quiet shift in gravity. And that scared her. The real change came about a week later when she asked me if I wanted to go to dinner, just us. A place we used to love, the kind of spot with candles on the tables and a waitress who remembered our names. I feel like we haven't connected in a while, she said, her voice gentle. Maybe we could have a night out? I looked up from my laptop and blinked. Sure, I said. If you want. She smiled. Yeah, I do. But when the night came, I didn't get dressed. I didn't remind her. I didn't cancel either. I just stayed on the couch, TV remote in hand, watching a documentary about space debris. At 7:45, she came downstairs in a black dress, the one she used to save for special occasions. She looked confused when she saw me still in sweatpants. I thought, weren't we? I forgot, I said simply. She blinked. You forgot? Yeah. Her mouth opened, then closed. She stood there for a long second as if waiting for a punchline. There wasn't one. Finally, she said, I can reschedule. I shrugged. You don't have to. She didn't go. She sat down on the couch next to me in silence, still in the dress, and stared at the TV like it had betrayed her too. That was when the real unraveling began. She started asking more questions. Everything okay? Did I do something? Is something going on at work? Each one was framed like concern, but underneath was the growing sense that control was slipping through her fingers. And that's what this was really about, control. She'd built our marriage on certain unspoken agreements. That I would be dependable, that I would forgive easily, that I would keep the house running smoothly, emotionally and practically, that I would always try. But now I wasn't trying. I was observing, measuring, documenting the way she pivoted, the way she tried to steer the ship back to normal. More compliments, more kisses, more "I miss yous" layered into everyday conversation. It was a performance, subtle but clear, and I gave her nothing in return. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't spiteful. I was just gone. Still present physically. Still eating meals, still paying bills, still showing up. But the version of me she'd always relied on, the man who ran errands at midnight, who covered for her when she forgot appointments, who patched her world back together, he had left the building. And she knew it. One night, she sat next to me on the porch after dinner. It was quiet, save for the buzz of distant traffic and the occasional chirp of crickets. She held her wine glass in both hands, stared at the horizon. "You've been different," she said. I didn't respond. "I'm not trying to pry," she continued. "It's just, you feel far away." I nodded. She waited. Then, softly, "Do you still love me?" A long pause. Then I said, "I don't think that's the question you should be asking." She turned to look at me, but I didn't meet her eyes. "What's the question then?" she asked. I stood, walked back inside, and said over my shoulder, "You already know." She noticed the boiler first. It was a cold morning, the kind that made your breath cloud up before you even opened the door. She came downstairs wrapped in a hoodie, rubbing her arms and muttering something about the heater being off. "The thermostat's working," she called from the hallway. "But it's freezing." I sipped my coffee. "Boiler's probably sh*T. She blinked at me. "Well, can you take a look?" I stirred the mug slowly. "I could, but I won't." Her mouth opened slightly. "What?" I met her eyes for the first time that morning. "You heard me." She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. A pause hung in the air like steam over a boiling pot. "You're just not going to fix it?" she asked. I shrugged. "Not my priority." Her confusion was real, but so was the disbelief. She wasn't used to this version of me, the one who let things slide. The one who didn't scramble into problem-solving mode the moment something in the house broke. And that was just the beginning. Later that week, the entry lock jammed. Same deadbolt we'd had for years. She came home struggling with the key, jiggling it until the door finally gave. She turned toward me. I was on the couch, reading. "Jason," she said, setting her bag down. "The front lock sticking. Like, really sticking." I nodded. "Yeah, I noticed." Another pause. She waited. "So, are you going to fix it?" "No. No. I walked past it for 2 days," I said. "Seems like a pattern now." She didn't say anything after that. She just stared at me, then turned away, visibly unsettled. Grocery bags stayed in the trunk that weekend. She went out alone, came back balancing paper bags against her hip, kicking the door with her foot. I didn't move from the kitchen stool. She glared at me, out of breath. "You saw me pulling in." "Sure did," I said, biting into an apple. "You could have helped." I nodded. "I could have." That was all. She stood there for a moment longer, looking like she was about to explode, then turned and carried everything in herself. One trip. No thanks given, none expected. I watched all of it like a quiet observer at a play. Not rooting for the hero, not pitying the villain. Just taking in the unraveling of the performance. The once efficient household, the one we'd operated like a well-oiled team, slowed to a crawl. She forgot to replace light bulbs. The trash piled up longer than usual. The fridge grew sparse, missing staples she assumed I'd restock. Almond milk, her probiotic yogurt, that fancy hummus she liked from the co-op. I did nothing, and it started getting to her. Not in the loud ways. She didn't scream. She didn't accuse. She simply became rattled, unstable. She was a woman used to holding court, our house, her domain. She'd always known when the hand soap was running low, when the laundry needed flipping, when the pillows had to be rotated to keep them fluffy. Now she missed things, and I let her. She forgot a dentist appointment, showed up a week early. She left the stove on once, not dangerously, just long enough to burn the edge of the pan. When she realized, she stared at the blackened rim like it meant something more. Maybe it did. I watched the decline not with satisfaction but with detachment. I wasn't punishing her. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was simply stepping back and letting gravity work. This is what happens, I thought, when one person lets go and the other keeps pretending to hold the rope. I remained polite, cordial even. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't bring up the other man, the rental house, the touch I'd seen through the window. I didn't need to. My silence said enough. Her attempts to fix it came in waves. First came the niceties, random compliments, more questions about my day, attempts to re-engage in my routines. She asked about the book I was reading, brought home the brand of coffee I liked without asking. She smiled more, brighter. But behind it all, I could see the desperation simmering beneath the surface. Then came the reassertion of her role. She organized a dinner, something just us. She lit candles, plated the food carefully, even pulled out the cloth napkins we only used when her parents visited. It's been a weird month, she said, twirling pasta with her fork. I don't want us to lose each other. I chewed, nodded. Yeah. Do you want to talk about anything? She asked, her voice careful. I shook my head. Not really. Another pause. I feel like you're not here, she said, her eyes searching mine. I am, I said. You're just not used to seeing me when I'm not doing everything. That landed. I saw it in her face. A flicker of realization. The part of her that had grown too comfortable, too confident that I'd always be the emotional repairman. Now she was stuck holding all the broken pieces. She blinked quickly, covered the moment with a sip of wine. Well, if there's anything I can do. There is, I said. Her eyes lit up. Okay. What? I stood and cleared my plate. Start by fixing the boiler. The air between us shifted after that. Tense. Stilted. The smallest things became battlegrounds, unspoken, passive, but deeply felt. I stopped answering texts right away. I stopped volunteering updates. I stopped covering for her forgetfulness with her family and friends. If she forgot to RSVP or missed someone's birthday call, that was on her now. She became quieter. Less cheerful. More distracted. And still, I remained calm. Not cruel. Not loud. Just removed. Her disbelief grew with every passing day. She wasn't used to this, not from me. Not from the man who used to keep everything running, who used to jump in before the glass hit the floor. Now I watched it fall. And I didn't move. The shift went public at a birthday party. It was one of our couple friend gatherings, backyard string lights, folding chairs, potluck dishes arranged across a long table. I didn't want to go. She insisted we should. It'll be good to get out, she said. Be normal. Normal. That word hit differently now. I went. Not for her, for the friends I still respected, and maybe to see how far she'd take the performance. She wore her favorite sweater and that practiced, radiant smile. I wore indifference like armor. When it came time to unload the birthday gifts from someone's car, one of the hosts asked, "Hey, Jason, can you give us a hand?" I shook my head. Let's keep it equal. Everybody can carry something. Doesn't need to be a guy thing. A couple of the women laughed awkwardly. Someone muttered, "Fair point." My wife didn't laugh. Her face barely held together. Later, during cake and candles, she tried to loop her arm through mine. I shifted my weight just slightly, enough for her hand to fall back to her side. Her cheeks flushed, not from wine, but from exposure. The group noticed. They always notice. Afterward, in the car, she said nothing. The silence felt like the quiet after a dropped glass, not loud, but sharp. The house declined further. The dishwasher broke. The garage light flickered until it died. Laundry overflowed from the basket. She stopped asking. I stopped explaining. It came to a head one night when she sat across from me at the dinner table, the same table where we used to plan vacations, talk about names for kids we might have one day. She looked worn down. Makeup faded. Voice soft. I need to say something, she said. I didn't speak. Just waited. I've been seeing someone. I don't even know why anymore. At first, it felt like something I needed. Like I wasn't getting. I don't know, something from us. But it got out of control. And I don't even like him now. I hate who I became. She stared at her hands, not even crying yet. I lied to you. I hurt you. And I get it now. What I did, it made everything unravel. I listened, still calm. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I had nothing left to break. I don't expect forgiveness, she added. But I wanted you to hear it from me. I nodded once. Later that week, she invited my mother over. I didn't know why at first until I heard them talking quietly in the kitchen. My wife told her everything. The betrayal. The lies. The unraveling. My mother didn't speak much. She just listened. That night I fixed the boiler. Replaced the garage light. Made her coffee the way she liked it, strong, oat milk, cinnamon on top. Not for her. Not even for us. but because I wanted the house to feel less broken. She watched me from across the kitchen, silently, like she finally understood what it meant to lose something solid. The next morning, she posted a photo of me fixing the fence out back. Her caption, "Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just steady. Sometimes it just stays." It didn't fix anything, but the house felt heavier in a good way, like gravity was back. And this time it was holding her. Not me.